Ultimately, we think that all of these tariff discussions are about trade deficits. We used to think that perhaps it was focused on China, but it's actually not just China. Now, that said, there is a fear, right? And you're seeing what's happening in Europe with Chinese automakers and the infiltration they've been having. That's probably going to happen at some point in the U.S. How will it happen? I think the president has said in the past that he'd be okay if it's good for U.S. jobs. Perhaps if it's increased production in the U.S., a JV with the U.S. automaker, probably is how it'll happen. But all in all, I think all of these tariffs are just there for what the president believes is a trade deficit issue.
Even if we manage to remove the so-called barriers to entry, I just wonder how competitive any of the manufacturers in Europe or the US can be in the Chinese market at the moment.
Oh, in the Chinese market? Absolutely. Yeah, that's the big issue. I mean, it's an EV-dominated market. They own the battery ecosystem. It's going to be a while. I think probably you'll have more retrenching, which is not such a big deal for the U.S. OEMs. It's a bigger problem for the European OEMs, right? The German OEMs have such a strong vested interest in China. They have to sell more EVs. I think they have to be okay with losing market share there, but kind of staying in the mix.
Well, there's another question about how competitive U.S. auto manufacturers can be if the tariffs on Chinese goods in particular stay on, right? How important is it for some of these tariffs to come in, especially given that there now are guardrails on Mexico's imports around Chinese vehicle parts and things of that nature as well?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I do wonder, though, if some of that, the Mexico tariff, 50% tariff, has more to do with a potential deal being struck, right, between the U.S. and Mexico. And we've talked to trade experts recently that seem to suggest that as USMCA gets renegotiated July, perhaps before that, it could actually be advantageous for companies with business in Mexico. But perhaps it's a bilateral deal, or you get some U.S. contenting, which maybe it's a 50% requirement. The U.S. OEMs are already at 40%. It's not that hard to go from 40 to 50%.